Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thank you so much for dropping by this video. I got some interesting questions and comment I thought would take a moment and respond to. So this person writes, one moment. So this person, when they first found Bruno's teachings, they believed in reincarnation. And they said, however, after 7 or 8 years of Einstein, they simply could not believe in that anymore. And this person wrote, and nobody could be more surprised over that feeling than I was. That conviction gradually just faded away. And of course, I know he always told us to convince ourselves, but is this against his teachings? However, there it is. I just thought that this was very interesting. So Bruno Gröning never convinced anyone that they needed to believe in anything. And you're right. He said, convince yourself of the truth. So he did the thing that he was. Now, there were some things he was adamant on. Now, he didn't talk about reincarnation all the time and to everybody. In fact, when he met Alfred Hosp and Alfred asked him about reincarnation, Bruno said, oh, at last, finally someone I can talk to about this. So for the most part, Bruno Gröning, he did teach reincarnation. That's just a fact that he taught it and that he said it was true. But what's also a fact is he usually didn't teach it. And the question of why is a fascinating question. And you'd have to ask Bruno Gröning. I have my own guesses. And so you report something very interesting, that at first you believed in reincarnation and then that belief just left. Well, I don't know how or why, but what I can say is that Bruno Gröning taught a way of life. He didn't teach a belief system. If there was one thing he was adamant on, it is God is good. There is a God, God is good, and God is available to help. That's pretty much the only things that I would say Bruno was uncompromising on. And but that's maybe not even for me to say. But in my sense of it is, in terms of beliefs, but he didn't want people to just believe. He wanted them to come to know that even for themselves. So why would the belief in reincarnation fade after you've done 7 or 8 years of Einstein? I don't know. My guess is that that's not what's best for your soul's development in this lifetime. That's just my guess. I don't know. You'd have to take that up with God or Bruno. And so does not believing in reincarnation against Bruno Gröning's teachings? So again, you'd have to ask Bruno. So far as I can tell, absolutely not. Bruno himself said, it doesn't matter how you find God, just that you find God. The idea that you can only find God if you have somehow this right belief doesn't make sense to me anymore. Now, I started off by saying Bruno was adamant with the idea that God is only good. And Bruno often said God never punishes, but he allows hardships to happen so that a lesson may be learned, or as I forget his exact word, the word he used was as a reparation, so that a reparation may happen, meaning some kind of balancing of the scales for past wrong. So that belief is very important, because without believing that God is only good, it's very hard to trust God. And Bruno's way of life and path was based around trusting God. So it doesn't concern me, and I can't see how not having, that belief going away could interfere with you practicing what Bruno Gröning taught? Great question. Mm-hmm. So I must share a comment I got the other day whilst talking to a relative of mine who is not very religious at all. She said, well, Jesus Christ never said, I am sorry, I can't help you. You have 10 years left of karma to deal with. A lot to learn, dear child. I thought it was a valid point as well as funny. Well, there's a couple of things I would say that. First of all, we don't know most of what Jesus Christ actually said. Like what we have, let's say you take the Bible as literally true. I don't. It's okay with me if you do. If we put all the words of Jesus together in the Bible, we've got maybe 8 or 9 hours of talking, if even that. And it said that Christ taught for 3 years. And of course, who knows, he's active for 3 years. Who knows how much he taught before that? So we have this much. And actually, there is a verse where it said he went to a particular town and he was not able to work many wonders there. So it's not that, every person who met Jesus had a healing, at least according to the record, if you consider that a valid record. So yes, I find that person's comment very funny. But here's what I would counter it with. I would counter it with something that Bruno said. Bruno said, if a healing doesn't occur, it's because there's something left to learn, or the person has not attained the proper spiritual maturity. And Bruno also said, only God has the necessary preview to know when a healing would be best for a person's spiritual development. So Bruno Gröning's teaching, and I would argue the teaching of Christ, is based on spiritual growth, becoming a better person. In Christian terms, becoming a more godly person. In Christian terms, becoming more like Christ. So most people don't have that model. Most people in the Christian model have the idea of die and go to heaven. And they have the idea of like, I'm just going to get good stuff from God. They don't really have this growth, this idea of becoming more like Christ, which is sad. So within that comes the idea of like, oh, a healing would be what's best. On the surface, that seems true, but I would argue that's a very shallow look at life. In that perspective, it's best if I get what I want. But that perspective doesn't have God in charge. And that perspective also doesn't hold a sense of trust. It's like, oh, I have this thing happening to me. I just need to get rid of it immediately. So I would say that's a more religious view of life, of like, it doesn't really matter if I grow, just when I die that I get into heaven, and please God, give me what I want. Whereas Bruno's presentation of life, and what I would say is Bruno's teaching is in line with many other wisdom traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, and even early Christianity. Before it became a religion, the early church, they were called church fathers, taught about this spiritual process that we all went through that, yes, was hard sometimes. In fact, that was part of it, to make us more like Christ. So I think you're welcome to believe whatever you like. But the implications of what's being presented here. So this person continues, I see so much suffering of great, sweet souls, and I see others that, like you pointed out, got healed instantly. And of course, it is possible to not feel discouraged when you are devoted to the teachings, but the years pass by and sometimes very grave sufferings go on and on. I disagree that it is, you write, it is impossible to not feel discouraged. I disagree. So that's a habit. And it's a habit of lack of faith and trust. And it's a habit of demanding that we get what we want. Now, Bruno Gröning said, I ask you to please not to determine for yourself the time that a healing occurs so that it may occur as quickly as possible. So getting discouraged slows down a healing, and it's also a demand. So a big part of what I see in your question, I get that this isn't so much you, but what other people said, is a lack of surrender and a lack of trust. So the idea is like, I'm going to make healings happen, or this should be gone now, or, kind of like I'm in charge, I know what's best, versus the idea that God is in charge, God knows what's best, and that we're all engaged in a learning spiritual, you could say spiritual evolutionary process. Bruno Gröning called it sanctification, which is almost the exact word that the early Christian fathers used. They called it divinization, being made more like God. And I feel that perhaps Bruno's call for perfection, which is almost impossible if you are human, can be hard to live up to. And then one feels even worse. So I don't have any record of, I don't have any memory of Bruno calling for perfection. I do, just in my last video I made, I talk about, Bruno does talk about, so first of all, I have no memory of Bruno ever calling for perfection. I don't know where that sounds like something that you're putting on to Bruno Gröning's teaching. Now it is easy to compare ourselves to Bruno. I've certainly done that and then felt bad about myself, but that's not what Bruno did. That's what I did, misapplying his teachings. And in fact, Alfred Haas did something similar. Alfred was like, I'm going to be like Bruno. I'm going to eat very little food. I'm not going to sleep much. I'm just going to meditate. And next time Alfred decided this, and next time Bruno came and saw him, he said, no. You need to eat strongly and build up your strength. And so this comes back to the idea that not only are we involved in a spiritual evolutionary process, it's very individual, which speaks to the fact that the idea of reincarnation, you don't believe in it anymore. Again, I would just say that's probably what's best for you. I don't know that. That's just my guess. This person wrote, I know this may sound very critical and negative, and it certainly isn't my intention because no one can deny what he did. And still, in many, many cases, still does helping and healing. These are just a few thoughts. I don't know what that means. It's an incomplete sentence. And I'm so grateful for this channel that many, many times it's helped me to not give up. So thank you. So it's so fun. I hope you watched the previous video. I just made a video that I didn't read this comment, but I just made a video that basically addresses everything you're saying right now. So let me see if I can pull that up so I can give you the title. So look, part of what you're doing is presenting the religious view of life. The religious view of life is like, don't try too hard, just die and get into heaven. Like that's how I was raised. And that's just not what Bruno taught. And I'm not trying to make other people wrong, but if you want to, so what do I want to say? So first of all, this feels a little uncomfortable because this feels a little bit like coaching because I don't know you personally. I'm just going with my gut here. But what I have to say is that Bruno taught a way of life, and it's not easy. Every great spiritual teacher who I've looked at, Lao Tzu, the Buddha, Krishna, the original teachings of Christ before all this doctrine was added to it, they all teach a spiritual way of life that's not easy. So part of what I see in your answer, which I do often, which everybody does, is we want the easy way out. We want things to be simple and easy. They may be simple, but it's not easy. If you find a simple and easy way to always be peaceful, then let me know. I haven't found it. I've sure looked and I've sure tried. So you said, I'm so grateful for this channel that many, many times helped me to not give up. I have to tell you, I have struggled, and I do struggle with faith. Faith is a journey. I've shared many times on this channel. My first 9 months of this teaching, it was like miracle healings, awakening, peace, bliss, love. I was just floating on cloud 9 for 9 months. And then the next 10 years have been so hard. And I have given up many times, and I always come back. I don't know if give up is the word, but lose faith. I've lost faith many times. And I keep coming back. So this channel helps me as well. And Bruno Gröning said, if things do not go the way that, and this is a paraphrase, I don't have the exact quote, if things do not go the way that you want, please do not get angry at me. That is one of the most important teachings, in my view, that he gave. Because the spiritual path is not easy or comfortable. I wish it was otherwise. And so, according to Bruno, according to all these other wisdom traditions, it just isn't. So, I'm with you. I lose faith. I've lost faith. I hope it never happens again. Probably will. I certainly will struggle with faith. I hope I never lose it to the extent that I did. So, you know, in the last video, I read something from the Bible. It said, let endurance or let patience have its perfect result. Let's see. Be assured that the testing of your faith through experience or hardship produces endurance, leading to spiritual maturity and inner peace. And let patience or endurance have its perfect work with you and do a thorough work so that you may be perfect and completely developed in your faith, lacking nothing. So that's the vision. That's the vision that the early Christians had of a process of being made more like Christ. And part of how that happens is through facing hardships. I wish there was another way. So the long and short of it is, you keep coming back to this channel, and I'm honored. And, I try and make this channel just about, to the best of my ability, about understanding what Bruno Gröning really taught, getting to the essence. But this is just one teaching. So first of all, you're drawn to this teaching, love it, great. And this is just one teaching. And there's so many things that Bruno Gröning didn't say. I've had to go out and study other things to more better understand Bruno Gröning's teachings. One of his teachings I came across about a year or two ago, and it shocked me. And it said, anyone who is attached to worldly things cannot follow the will of God. That one blew me away. And I understand Bruno say you can't fully follow the will of God if you're attached to worldly things. Oh my God, that one shook my understanding deeply, because I've been trying to follow the will, seek and do God's will for a long time, and I was getting very mixed results. And when I read that, I said, oh, it's because I'm attached to worldly things. So I've been focusing on Hindu and Buddhist philosophy, which teaches you the art of detaching from worldly things. It's not a simple, straightforward process. It's not something to be like, I'm going to become less attached to worldly things. It's much more a delicate process than that. So Bruno Gröning never meant for his teaching to be a standalone teaching. According to Greta Hausler, he his vision was that the churches and temples would be full of people who were practicing what they were taught. So for a long time, I made the mistake of trying to make Bruno Gröning's teachings just a standalone teaching, but he left out many things on purpose. He talks almost nothing about the afterlife. Yes, he talks about reincarnation a little bit. My understanding is his intention, and I believe this is one of the reasons why he only had community hours every 3 weeks. He didn't want to start another religion. He wanted to help people live their religion. So you ask some deep questions, and all I can share is what my understanding of what Bruno Gröning taught. And hi, Nat. And then the way I connect that to other wisdom traditions. Now, I can't sit here and tell you that everything that Bruno Gröning taught is true. All I can tell you is it resonates with me. And I see deep connections between what Bruno taught and many other major wisdom traditions. So thank you so much for your comment, Christy. I didn't take your comments as negative. I hope you didn't take any of my comments as negative. Let's see if there's anything else I want to say. I'm just going back to the joke that someone said. Jesus Christ never said, I am sorry, I can't help you. Have 10 years left of karma to deal with and a lot to learn, dear child. It's a funny joke. It's a funny joke. But here's the thing that religious people can't answer. So I've presented this Bruno Gröning's view of a spiritual evolutionary process. And Bruno Gröning's explanation why healings don't occur instantly, and that's why suffering happens. But here's two things that religious people can't, I don't want to say religious people, but the religious mentality can't answer. Why does God allow suffering? And why does God heal some people and not others? I believe, for my heart, Bruno Gröning has given me the clearest answer to those two questions of any teaching I've ever come across. And yeah, I hope you go watch the last video I made. It's called Gratitude and the Teachings of Bruno Gröning. And I spoke at length about how suffering and challenge and facing evil, according to Bruno Gröning, and again, he's not alone in that teaching, leads to spiritual maturity and spiritual mastery and spiritual growth, and that it's actually a blessing in the long run. That's not to say it's not easy. And as I talk about in that video, it's not like every day, and it's easy to say that in an armchair philosophy kind of way, but to live it, it's very hard. Please go watch that video. To the person who asked this question, I literally talked about this topic for 10 minutes. So I would just say we're talking about two different paradigms here. And I would encourage you to follow whichever paradigm feels right to you. And I want to say from my heart, I don't know if Bruno would like this, is it's okay to be discouraged because you're going to be discouraged sometimes. That's part of it, from my view, is facing that discouragement. The thing I will say is, if I had one question for Bruno Gröning, it would be, what do I do with negative feelings, Bruno? Like when I'm feeling discouraged or I'm feeling depressed. Because the temptation is like, oh, I'm just going to give those away. And that works sometimes, but sometimes that doesn't work. For me personally, sometimes that works. I can just give a negative feeling away, boom, it's gone. Sometimes there's something for me to learn. It's like, what's behind that feeling? So again, not to criticize you because we've all done it and I do it. You wrote, it is impossible to not feel discouraged when you are devoted to the teaching, but the years pass by and sometimes very grave suffering goes on and on. So here's the thing. According to Bruno Gröning, not everything is going to heal in this lifetime. I don't like saying that, but it's also very important to say that. And Alfred Hosp is a great example. He had like 7, 8 healings through Bruno's help, but he had one condition that didn't heal. And Bruno Gröning said it was for his spiritual growth. And again, you won't believe this because you don't believe in reincarnation anymore, but Bruno said, you need this for this lifetime to get you ready for your next lifetime. Because again, we human beings have such a small view of our spiritual trajectory. Let's say you don't believe in reincarnation. Even so, this one lifetime is tiny compared to eternity. So even if you don't believe in reincarnation, you can hopefully still be open to the idea of a spiritual journey and to the idea that we're on a vast journey and this one lifetime is a very small part. Now, I'm not saying it's not a significant part. So thank you. I didn't experience your questions and comments as negative at all. The only part I struggled with, there was one sentence that I couldn't quite just understand. Your English is amazing, by the way. This person you wrote, sorry about my English. I hope it will make some sense. Everything made sense except for like 7 words. So you did great. And thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who joined in live. Robert H. Happy Thanksgiving, Robert. You know what? You just saying that right here, right now, I've been having a great Thanksgiving and that just took it up a notch. So thank you so much. To this person who wrote all these questions, the last thing I'd say is don't listen to human beings. I'm a human being. Don't listen to me. Listen to God. Follow God. And it gets a little paradoxical because Bruno Gröning is a human being. I would say he's a very pure human being. I would say the difference between Bruno Gröning and you and me is he didn't have to come, that he was sent. But that's just my belief based on some things that Bruno said. But ultimately, Bruno didn't want us to make a religion out of his words. He wanted us to learn to follow God. Bruno talked about that at a certain point on the spiritual path, we need a spiritual helper to help us receive the energy. But he also said, I want all of you to get. One person once said to Bruno, Mr. Gruning, please send me the Heilstrom, the healing stream, the healing energy. And Bruno said, why do you need me to send it? Just take it in yourself. And then he pointed out that at certain points on the spiritual journey, you need someone to help you receive it, to not help you receive it, to modulate it so that you can receive it. But that's just an intermediary step. So I would say the same, in my view, the same applies to the words of Bruno Gruning. They're an intermediary step. I obviously have great passion for them. I have passion for sharing them. For me, they're a compass. But I've had to let go of making them the absolute truth. And because you can misuse a spiritual teaching. I've shared on this channel many times how I've misused Bruno Gruning's teachings in my own life. What's an example of that? For example, okay, I started off this, I think it was in my last video, one of the things that Bruno said is the state of the world is steered by God. Only things that serve as a lesson are allowed to happen. In essence, that God is in control of everything. Well, just because God is in control of everything doesn't mean that I'm supposed to say yes to everything. Like, let's say someone's treating me very badly. I can misuse that spiritual teaching and say, oh, well, God sent this person, so I should just accept it. So a spiritual teaching can be misused, and I've talked about it a lot on this channel, and that's the example that's coming to mind is and again, that's what I would call religious mentality of like, gotta believe the word. The like, get the letters exactly correct versus the spirit. There's this expression, the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. So I think your questions and comments were great to this person. Robert, thank you for the Thanksgiving wishes. And I'm over and out. Thank you so much, beautiful souls. Take care. Have a blessed, blessed day.